Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Whitney Van Laningham, and if there's one thing everyone should know about me, it's that I love dogs. Like this one, and this one right here. Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Pugsley Adams, and today my Bob is gonna tell you about Cosmo the Space Dog. Don't tell my Bob's boss, but I totally wrote this script. Like Puggy said, one of my favorite parts of the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special was finally seeing and hearing more of Cosmo. So today, I'm gonna explain everything you need to know about this furry friend before Guardians 3 comes out. Quick recap of everything we know about Cosmo from the MCU. She first appeared in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 as an item in the Collector's Museum on Nowhere. She's a sweet little golden retriever, and although I do not approve of Tavon locking her in a glass case like a specimen, I'm very, very glad that she was at least somewhat protected when Karina blew up the place by grabbing an Infinity Stone with her bare hands like a goddamn dope. Cosmo speaks through her collar and is voiced by Maria Bakalova, who recently rose to stardom by crushing it as Borat's daughter. According to the Guardians holiday special, and James Gunn's tweets, after Thanos attacked Nowhere on his quest to retrieve the Reality Stone, the formerly bustling debauchery and resource mining hangout for mercenaries and space criminals was toast. The Guardians have a little cash outlet to spend after their many adventures, so they purchase the burned out husk and transform it into their new base of operations. Cosmo's job in the renovation process is to use her telekinesis to tear down and rebuild the damaged structures. But just so you know, she will only work for treats. Bob, you know we all unionize. We will not use our mind control powers or write, produce, edit, and star in your YouTube videos for less than 3 stackies an hour. Actually, make that 5 stackies an hour. I charge extra for being so handsome. Alright, that's fair. But now it's time to get into Cosmo's comic backstory and talk about what aspects of her story might cross over into the MCU if they haven't already. Pugsley, cover your ears for this, it's gonna get really sad. As you probably already knew, Cosmo's character was inspired by Laika the Space Dog, who was one of the very first animals in space, and the very first to orbit the Earth. Unfortunately, her survival was never expected, due to the fact that Soviet scientists didn't know how to safely bring a spacecraft back to Earth for landing. I really don't want to go into the horrific details, but Laika was adopted from the street and trained under harsh conditions for her journey to outer space, and ultimately passed away 4 days into the journey due to unregulated temperatures on board. Our furry Marvel friend was named after the cosmonauts, aka Russian astronauts, who handled Laika's journey. Cosmo's comic story is a somewhat more comforting alternative to the real Laikas. Trained by the Soviet space program, this sweet baby was launched into orbit, but he survived the journey. Hit by cosmic rays that gave him psionic powers, Cosmo ended up becoming the top dog chief of security for Nowhere. Like a really cool, much smarter and fluffier Paul Blart Mall cop, it was his job to keep the peace. And yes, I did just use male pronouns for Cosmo. Although she was written as a lady dog for the MCU, Cosmo from the comics was a very good boy. So when we're talking about MCU Cosmo, she's a she, and in the comic, he's a he. Gunn actually made this gender swap in honor of Cosmo's inspiration, Laika. I stare at screens all day, and that could be tough on my eyes. It used to be the case that I'd help my eyes out by wearing a pair of Blue Block's blue light glasses, but Blue Block's has become Bon Charge. Thankfully, the glasses have stayed the same. Bon Charge has a couple of different glasses depending on what you need. My go-to are the computer glasses. They help reduce sore eyes, headaches, watery eyes, and fatigue. If I'm staring at a computer all day or if I'm in a room with fluorescent lights, these glasses are my first line of defense. Bon Charge's glasses are backed by science and tested to make sure that they work, which is not the case with other light-blocking glasses on the market. If you've got a prescription, you can get these with a prescription. If you don't, you can get these without a prescription. Just need a pair of light-blocking reading glasses? Bon Charge can handle that too. Bon Charge ships worldwide and have other great products like low blue light bulbs, red light therapy devices, and 100% light-blocking sleep masks. Bon Charge is currently having a Boxing Day sale with a massive 25% off site-wide until January 2nd. Just go to boncharge.com and choose your favorite wellness products, and the discount code will be automatically applied at checkout. That's boncharge.com, and the 25 off discount code will automatically be applied at checkout. This little space dog is a master of telepathy, and despite Rocket's criticism of her accuracy in the holiday special, his comic version is extremely precise. One of the coolest things about him is that he has the ability to block his psionic powers from discovery by other mind readers, and he's also gifted at creating realistic illusions. He can even transform the appearance of himself and his allies by altering their enemy's perception of their surroundings, and ages at a much slower rate than normal dogs. He does have a weakness for poison, but that's why we don't let him eat chocolate, onions, butter, or broccoli from the dinner table. Even though Cosmo is a bit of a dog genius, he still loves simple doggy joys like chew bones and rubs. Cosmo first appeared in 2007's Nova Volume 4, number 8. And this canine cosmonaut leads Nova through an abandoned Nowhere. This is also the first appearance of Nowhere, and it's established that this severed celestial head sits on the edge of time and space. Being that nowhere is the closest point to observe the edge of the universe, it became a popular destination for scientists across the universe looking to study the end of everything. Like I said though, this place is a ghost town when Nova shows up, and Cosmo relays that the inhabitants of Nowhere fled into a microverse after an entity known as the Abyss started turning citizens into space zombies. Due to Cosmo's high-level psychic powers, he was able to resist the Abyss's influence, so he volunteered to be man's best friend and keep their microverse safe. This microverse, which he calls a dimensional envelope, was held within a tesseracted storage crystal attached to his collar. After teaming up with Nova to defeat the Abyss and its meat puppets, Nowhere's population was freed and Cosmo continued his duties as top dog of security. Nova eventually suggests the Guardians use Nowhere as a base shortly after the group's formation. Cosmo allowed them to work there and helped the Guardians as much as possible throughout 25 issues of GOTG Volume 2, especially when it came time to use the Continuum Cortex, a transport system made from the dead Celestial's brainstem. As we learned in the first Guardians film, Nowhere was mined for the leftover powerful resources within the head. Talk about an organ donor, am I right? Throughout Cosmo's comic history, he's stood against some pretty powerful foes. Cosmo has bested Adam Warlock, killed an alternate dimensions Hulk, and helped Mantis and Moondragon mentally subdue Thanos. Knowing that Nova, aka my boy Dick Ryder, is coming soon to the MCU, I do think it's highly likely that we'll eventually see these two team up like they did in the comics. There's even the possibility of Cosmo playing a role in Nova's introduction, just like he introduced the goodest space boy on the pages of his story. It's never a bad thing to have a psychic on your team, and if folks start gathering on Nowhere to watch the next big multiverse-shattering event, like Kang's arrival, we know he'll help lead Ryder and the Guardians to victory. I'm also wondering if at some point we'll see Cosmo entrusted with the safety of Nowhere's citizens inside a dimensional envelope, or a quantum envelope as it's likely to be called in the MCU. This is one of Comic Cosmo's coolest actions, and I'd love to see it play out on screen. It could also be a safe place for the Avengers to shrink down and hide in once Kang's on their asses. And Cosmo really is the best in the biz at protecting his teammates. I also really hope that we get a more in-depth backstory on Cosmo's Earth-life training in the space program in Guardians Volume 3. Not because I want to see a puppy tortured by Soviets, but because she and Rocket have such similar pasts. In the same way that Rocket was experimented on and had tech upgrades shoved into his meat suit, Cosmo also went through the ringer to survive the void of space and Yvonne's clutches. With the biology experimenting High Evolutionary confirmed as the Guardian's foe in Volume 3, these two thematically tie in with his MO and can serve as foils for one another. In the comics, Rocket has a contentious dynamic with Cosmo at times, and even though this is toned down in the holiday special, I can see these two snarling at one another before setting aside their differences. Rocket can be a little rough around the edges, but I bet 3,000 chew toys that deep down he has a soft spot in his heart for this fluffy girl. Lastly, my biggest entry on my Cosmo wish list: to see Cosmo back on Earth, witnessing the inside of a PetSmart for the first time. She'd open every single bag of greenies with her mind and suck those things down like baby back ribs. Did you just say greenies and baby back ribs? Dude, I am so starting to regret hitting you with that cosmic ray. You will give me treats while we leave the blue dungeon. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Whitney Puppy. Follow my co-host at Pugsley__Adams. Follow New Rockstars. Subscribe to New Rockstars for more analysis of everything you love. And thanks for watching. Bye. Okay, you get paid now.